Let's get to the details of those stories now. Parliament today resumed proceedings for an emergency sitting forced by the minority to demand an investigation into allegations that the Trade Ministry sold seat to expatriates who wanted access to President Akufo-Addo at the Expatriate Awards held last month. The presidency cleared the Trade Minister Alan Trematin and his deputy of any wrongdoing following a public outcry over the matter in December. But the minority are not having any of that and have invoked parliamentary processes to force a probe into the allegations, while the two sides of the House are sharply divided on whether or not an investigation is necessary. The majority has challenged the NDC to drag government to Shraj or Iyoko if it has any evidence of corruption. Information Minister Mustafa Hamid also says investigation by an external body is not necessary, as the presidency has thoroughly examined the matter.
There are circumstances that would occasion a president to make reference to the investigative bodies. Okay, and I'm sure...
yes, I've heard allegations against chief of staff that were given to the CID. Iyoko has been asked to investigate some of them. The BNI is doing some of these investigations.
Absolutely.
Exactly what is peculiar about this, that the president himself felt it was needful that he does the review?
Because this allegation was made in respect to his person.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that his office, or if you want...
the office of the president.
Yes, or that his seat. Okay, because he went and sat as an invited guest at an occasion. Then later on, people allege that the people who were sitting around him at that table were not sitting there on any criteria except on the basis of the fact that they paid 100,000 United States dollars to sit with him. Are you following me?
I get you.
So it was about his name that was allegedly used in that respect. And so that is why he was concerned to protect the sanctity, or to be clear in his mind that the sanctity of his office was not violated, or that people did not use his office, if you want, as a pretext to raise money or whatever.
But even when the Ministry of, what they call it, Trade had written letters and insisted that the money should go through their account for...
That was an earlier conversation yesterday with my colleague Raymond Akwa on Affront with the Information Minister. Right now, though, we're crossing live to Parliament, where the proceedings will begin shortly. I understand the Speaker is speaking at the moment. We can hear him.
Of the House. This matter has generated considerable public interest and is a subject matter of the recall. Certainly, we have not had the much needed relief from the pressures of the last meeting. Our Constitution, however, mandates that we should heed the call of duty. Honorable members, let us go the extra mile to execute the business arranged for this short sitting with zeal and expedition. I welcome you all to the House and request that we commence business in earnest. Thank you.
All right. So you're welcome to the Chamber of Parliament. We are coming to you live from the Chamber of Parliament. This is an emergency sitting called by the Speaker of Parliament to deliberate on a memo submitted by the Member of Parliament for Asawase and Minority Chief with Mohammed Muntaka Mubarak. A while ago, the Speaker welcomed members to the Chamber and then explained to them the reason why they had to record from their holidays. As we speak, the majority leader is getting ready to present the business statement for today. Remember that this is an emergency sitting, so there was no business meeting ahead of this emergency meeting. The reason why this has delayed is that the business committee had to sit to decide on the motion and then program it for the attention of members of parliament. So that is out of the way. On the other paper for today, we have the business statement for today, Friday, 5th January 2018, and the majority leader will soon deliver it to Parliament. After that, the motion, which is advertised on the other paper, is calling on the House to investigate the levy and collection by the Ministry of Trade and Industry. We can go live and listen to the majority leader, Osei Mensah, as he presents the business statement for today.
The 1992 Constitution and Order 38(1) of the Standing Orders of Parliament. Speaker, you made a referral of the application by a group of members of Parliament to the Business Committee for consideration and for us to craft the agenda for today's sitting. Speaker, the committee accordingly met and submits its report as follows. Arrangement of business. Speaker, you may give us any formal communication, and after that, we may have the motion, the application from a section of the minority group in Parliament being moved. And Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order 162 and subject to Standing Order 53, the committee submits to this Honourable House the order in which the business of the House shall be taken during the day. That is today, Friday, the 5th of January. Speaker, already you have read the formal communication to us, and what is left now is for the motion to be moved by the Prime Mover. And the motion reads that this Honourable House investigates the levy and collection by the Ministry of Trade and Industry of the Ghana cedi equivalent of various sums of money, United States of America dollars, from expatriate businesses and related matters during the recently held Ghana Expatriate Business Awards in Accra. Speaker, that is the order of business to be transacted by the House today. I beg to submit.
Honourable Majority Leader, is there any further indication in that direction?
Speaker.
So I will move very directionally.
Speaker, where we are, the motion must be moved because there's nothing before the House if the motion is not moved. And even if it is moved and not seconded, it will still amount to nothingness. So let's provide space for the motion to be moved and seconded. And Speaker, we take it from there. Thank you very much.
Honourable Minority Leader.
Speaker, the Majority Leader and Leader of Government Business have presented to you the business statement. So with you yourself, thankfully have done what is legally and constitutionally appropriate in accordance with Article 1123 and Order 38 of our standing orders. We may have to adopt the business statement as presented by him and accordingly proceed to hear the motion and await your directives on the matter. I thank you.
The business statement presented by the Honourable Majority Leader is accordingly admitted and adopted. Honourable Majority Leader, do we move to the item 4.
That is all, Mr. Speaker.
Item listed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this Honorable House investigates the levy and the collection by the Ministry of Trade and Industry of Ghana, of the Ghana cedi equivalent of various sums of money in United States of America dollars from expatriate businesses and related matters during the recently held Ghana Expatriate Business Award in Accra. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, let me state that it was very worrying for not only me, but for many Ghanaians to hear that in doing so, I said that it was very worrying, not to only me, but to many Ghanaians, both home and abroad, to wake up to the news that it was possible in our country, Ghana, today, that sitting proximity to president will have to cost money. And Mr. Speaker, the document available to all of us, Mr. Speaker, the document available to me, Mr. Speaker, which I'm ready to tender them, is first the meeting of 23rd October 2017 that was signed by my colleague, Honorable Carlos Ahinkra. Mr. Speaker, that document clearly states that these sums of money ranging from $100,000 US to $15,000 US will have to be paid. Will have to be paid to have access to proximity to the president. Mr. Speaker, this is a very worrying situation, and for me, if it is established and proven, will be a very difficult ethical issue for us as a country. Mr. Speaker, it is unethical to even imagine such a thing to happen. So, Mr. Speaker, if it is proven, that will be a very interesting one. Mr. Speaker, order. I want to refer the House that if you go to the Constitution, Article 175, if you go to the Public Financial Management Act, and then the Financial Administration Act, specifically in the case of the Financial Administration Act, Section 16 to 18, and in the case of the Public Financial Management Act, Section 7, and you look at the interpretation of public resources, it is beyond doubt that the monies that were collected by the ministry are public resources. Mr. Speaker, if you look at what really happened, Mr. Speaker, it started with denial, because at the committee, when this was raised, it was denied flatly that it never happened. Mr. Speaker, it moved on to radio stations. Order. Mr. Speaker, the denial started
Honorable, Honorable Dr. Agudu Osei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was listening to the Minority Chief Whip, and he made a reference to Financial Administration Act. Mr. Speaker, there's no act like Financial Administration Act. Mr. Speaker, that act has been replaced by the PFMA Act. Mr. Speaker, so he's grossly misleading this House And you must withdraw that part of the statement.
Order.
Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Mentata, if you feel
Mr. Speaker, I made reference.
that lapse has been duly corrected, you may say so and proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I made reference to Public Financial Management Act and then the Financial Administration Regulation. If I did say act, Mr. Speaker, if I did say act, then I'm sorry. I mean Financial Administration Regulation, and I quoted the relevant sections. Mr. Speaker, this started with a complete denial at the Committee of Trade and Industry. Mr. Speaker, no other person but the principal spending officer, the chief director of the Ministry of Trade and Industry at the committee, did deny that this didn't happen. When the letter was read to him, he said that this is news to me, Mr. Speaker, and I quote, he said, this is news to me, and we were going to interrogate that and come back. Mr. Speaker, this never happened. Mr. Speaker, when the issue was raised on the 15th of December on the floor of this House, subsequent on radio, there were complete denial. And on the 17th, Mr. Speaker, the ministry issued a statement, 17th December, and Mr. Speaker, precisely paragraph 5 of that statement categorically stated that the Ministry of Trade and Industry had nothing to do with resource mobilization. Mr. Speaker, subsequent to this, on Joy FM, there was an interview with myself and my colleague, Honorable Carlos Ayebra, and there was then admission that yes, we collected monies. But these monies that we collected, we had transferred every pursuer of these monies to the Millennium Excellence Foundation. And Mr. Speaker, on the 21st December, there was another statement from the Ministry of Trade and Industry. And Mr. Speaker, shockingly, from denial we didn't have anything to do with resource mobilization to acceptance that we collected 2.6 million Ghana cedis and we spent 3.2 million Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, I made 2.3 million Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, I made reference to the relevant documents, the Constitution, the PFM, the Public Financial Management Act, and then the Financial Administration Regulation. All of them, if you look at the monies that were collected, in the minister's statement of 21st December, he admitted that they issued even official receipt. Once you issue official receipt, this becomes public resources. In spending it, you have to go through the public structure that has been structured for you to spend. Mr. Speaker, all these were not done. Mr. Speaker, the most worrying of all is that the presidency, in the 21st December, it was said that the presidency had nothing to do with what was happening. But Mr. Speaker, when you look at the 17th December press release,
Honorable Minority Leader, you may second the motion according to what the leaders themselves had agreed upon.
Mr. Speaker, in concluding, let me say it is important that these matters are investigated properly, and they should be done in the public eye to create the necessary image that Parliament. We have the biggest opportunity now to stand once again to prove to the people of this country that as a House, we will do what we think is right to bring out, if there's any doubt about how finances are used in this country, definitely this House will stand to this. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Secondment of the motion. Honorable Minority Leader. Who seconds the motion? Yes, Honorable Okudito.
I'm most grateful, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to second the motion that has been ably moved by the Minority Chief Whip. Mr. Speaker, today is a day that we have been called to carry out our constitutional duties.
Order.
We have an obligation to the Constitution, to the people we serve, and to our dear country to carry out our oversight responsibilities as members of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, this is a matter that I am convinced satisfies the requirements in Article 103(1) and 3 of the Constitution of Ghana. And Mr. Speaker, if I may quote, with your permission, Article 103 of the Constitution says that Parliament shall appoint standing committees and other committees as may be necessary for the effective discharge of its functions. Clause 3 says, committees of Parliament shall be charged with such functions, including the investigation and inquiry into the activities and administration of ministries and departments, as Parliament may determine, and such investigation and inquiries may extend to proposals for legislation. Mr. Speaker, I am also convinced that this motion satisfies Standing Order 191, which states, and I quote, the House may at any time by motion appoint special or ad hoc committee to investigate any matter of public importance. Mr. Speaker, any matter of public importance. And I am convinced that this cash for seat scandal, which has engaged the nation's attention, meets the criteria of public importance as outlined by Eskin May in our parliamentary practice book. Mr. Speaker, this is a matter that very significant sections of society, the Ghana Integrity Initiative, which is the local chapter of Transparency International, has called for a public inquiry into this matter. Leading anti-corruption crusaders like PC Apia of Fori, Honorable Kennedy Echepong, Dr. Kojo Asante of the CPD have all called.
Order. Honorable, this stand on the point of order.
Mr. Speaker, with respect, I shall like to refer the House to Order 866.
You stand on the point of order.
It is so, Mr. Speaker.
No, don't tell me it is so. Tell me what it is.
Mr. Speaker, I stand on a point of order, and I come under Order 866. Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleague is seconding the motion. This is what Order 866 provides. A mover of a motion or amendment may speak in support of it, but no further debate shall be allowed until the motion or amendment has been seconded. Mr. Speaker, he is seconding. He is not supposed to debate. Mr. Speaker, per 866, he is seconding the motion. It is only after it has been seconded that there can be further debate on the matter. Mr. Speaker, he is seconding. He is not supposed to debate. So all that he is supposed to do, Mr. Speaker, per our rules, is to rise and second the motion. He can then give the opportunity to any other person to debate. If he wants to debate, he can second it. Mr. Speaker, that is clearly provided for under 866 of our rules. Mr. Speaker, that is our rules. Unless there is any other provision he's relying on apart from what is right here in 866. I rest my case.
An honorable member is on the right terrain when he or she gets up and says, I second the motion, and in so doing, he has not reached the limit of debates yet, but he has to give a reason for his seconding.
Long live the Right Honourable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a matter which this House has locus. It falls very much within our purview. The presidency had attempted earlier to investigate this matter in a statement issued on 21st December 2017. But clearly, this will have been the presidency becoming a judge in their own cause. And it will not really generate the confidence that we need to delve into these matters. Mr. Speaker, in concluding, there have been so many inconsistencies that this House will have to set up a committee to look into. If you look at the first statement from the Ministry of Trade and Industry on the 17th of December, they indicate that, let me read the 21st December statement first. It says that, I wish to state categorically, and this is a statement signed by the Honorable Alan Chamanti, Minister for Trade and Industry. It states, and I quote, neither His Excellency, the President, nor any official of the Presidency, directly or indirectly, or even remotely, was connected with the said event. The President was invited as a special guest of honor, and he graciously accepted the invitation and attended the event, unquote. However, the 17th December 2017 statement reads, and I quote, upon the conception of the novel idea, the Foundation informed the government through the Presidency and further sought partnership with the Ministry of Trade and Industry in the organization of the event. So, who do we believe? Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, paragraph 7. In concluding,
this is the time to conclude.
Mr. Speaker, in concluding, we are told, and this is a very important point, we are told that nobody paid $100,000 to sit by the President and to have an exclusive private dinner.
Honorable Okudeto, when you transgress into the territory of argument and counter-arguments, my duty is to stop you. Because that will be the purpose of a committee to establish which statements are right. So it's not for us here now. So please conclude and let's make a forward.
So, Mr. Speaker, I follow your guidance, and I wish to submit that the Public Financial Management Act, in our opinion, several sections have been breached. The Financial Administration Regulations, Article 284 of the Constitution of Ghana, and that is why I second the motion which has been ably moved by the Honorable Muntaka Mohammed. I thank you very much for the opportunity, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minority.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the motion ably moved by the Whip, the Honorable Muntaka, and seconded by the Honorable Ablakwa, that this August House, pursuant to our mandate, Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me thank you for doing what is legally and constitutionally appropriate, having been served with a petition by the minority, signatured and signed by, as the Constitution requires, pursuant to Article 1123 and Standing Order 38 in summoning the House. Mr. Speaker, you have also graciously just accommodated the motion which has been moved, which has been seconded. And Mr. Speaker, the motion is calling on you, as I will add to it, that pursuant to Order 191, and with your indulgence, I quote, the House may at any time by motion appoint special or ad hoc committee to investigate any matter of public importance. Any matter of public importance. The Speaker, undoubtedly, this is a matter of public interest and a matter of public importance that the highest office of the land is engaged in some transaction to which there are questions relating to payments of certain amounts of money, ranging from 100 to 75 to 10,000, whether you are sitting on the right or left of the highest office of the land. And Mr. Speaker, for us to set up an ad hoc committee, I believe, Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Order 191, it should be a committee of 5. Mr. Speaker, even though our notion of separation of powers in Ghana under the 1992 Constitution is not a perfect one, but it does allow this Parliament, with a jurisdiction and mandate, to probe matters within the realm of the executive. And this is a matter within the realm of the executive, the presidency and the Ministry of Trade, and whether or not there are breaches to the laws of Ghana, including the Public Financial Management Act and the Financial Administration Regulation, which has been referred to. Mr. Speaker, I therefore will urge you to guide this House in proceeding further to set up a 5-member special ad hoc committee to investigate the matter of sale of seats, depending upon which side of the president you sat, for the purpose of expatriate award, and whether it does not breach the ethics. Mr. Speaker, values and principles are timeless. We do so, Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Article 1033 of the Constitution. As a House, we are combining our oversight and investigative role as a Parliament. And Mr. Speaker, probably as we generally as a House agree to, the committee may want to inquire and determine whether the extent to which the Honourable Minister responsible for Trade and Industry violated the laws and regulations of the Republic relative to the collection of these monies, whether the monies as were paid were disbursed in accordance with established procedures and practice of the Controller Accountant General, and to make appropriate recommendations as to how to improve our governance regime on this matter. Mr. Speaker, I therefore will persuade you to accept, as you have done, the establishment of a special ad hoc committee of 5 to look into the detail of this matter and other related matters. Mr. Speaker, because we will go beyond what has been an effortless attempt to exonerate people, even when the matter has not been investigated, an effortless attempt. And therefore, the Parliament of this House, and Mr. Speaker, as I have said, I should commend you. This will be a watershed, and that principle must become an integral part of our governance process and practice. I support the mover of the motion, and I want to thank him for bringing this an ethical matter to the fore and to the public domain. So I thank the Honourable Muntaka and the Honourable Ablakwa for bringing this matter, which is of immense public interest and public importance, with borders on the value of accountability and transparency in the disbursement of public resources. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, Parliament has a responsibility to oversee executive performance. And so, if anything untoward happens, it should be within the remit of Parliament to investigate any infractions. So, Mr. Speaker, ordinarily, a motion relating to extortion of funds, as have been put out there, must be supported. Except that, Mr. Speaker, I believe that in this particular instance, the resort by my colleagues amounts to a gross abuse of the process of this House. Mr. Speaker, no matter of public importance has suddenly arisen in the few days when we proceeded on recess. Mr. Speaker, this matter had played out before Parliament proceeded on adjournment, and indeed on the floor of this House, the Chief Whip had cause to relate to this matter. Mr. Speaker, no question was submitted to you which you disagreed with or refused to accept. Mr. Speaker, no statement was submitted to you which you refused to admit. No motion was submitted to you which you refused to admit. Mr. Speaker, you are the sole person charged with the admissibility of questions, statements, and motions, which this House, as a collective or individual, resort to in our pursuit to oversee the executive. Mr. Speaker, we have resorted to this path before, except that in our case, when we did, the then Speaker refused to accept the statement. He refused to accept the motion. And Mr. Speaker, on that score, we signaled to him that if he refused to accept our motion or urgent question, we would go under the constitutional provision, that is Article 112, sub 3, to force his hand to summon Parliament. When he refused to do that, we forced his hand. Mr. Speaker,
it's a figurative statement. It's a figure of speech.
Order, honorable members. Honorable Minority Leader, you stand on the point of order. Honorable members, we all know our processes. So let's hear the point of order or correction.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of order. I ordinarily shouldn't do that to the leader of the House. And for those who want to know, Order 93.5. Mr. Speaker, 93.5, Mr. Speaker, you have exercised the powers conferred on you as Speaker of this august House in summoning this House to deal with this matter. Therefore, 93.5, Mr. Speaker, I read, the conduct of Mr. Speaker, members and Chief Justice and judges of the Superior Court of Judicata shall not be raised. He is questioning your conduct. And you have quoted this several times. And Mr. Speaker, he has even said that your hands are being forced. Mr. Speaker, the majority leader have no business questioning the summoning of Parliament. It is constitutionally legitimate and apt for you to do what you have done under the laws and the Constitution of Ghana.
If that were so, then no reference will be made to any ruling. I at all in our argument. But precedents, Mr. Lawyer, you know very well, Honorable Minority Leader, that they are real authorities to quote in any court of competent jurisdiction, as we are all used to. But it's different in terms of a conduct with ill motive or otherwise. A mere reference to a previous decision, I will allow. Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker,
Order. Honorable members, order. Honorable Majority Leader, please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, indeed, the young shall grow. Clearly, my colleague, the minority leader, was not listening to me when he quoted what I said. He got it wrong. I was not even referring to...
Honorable Majority Leader, continue.
Mr. Speaker, as I was saying, a referral to the business committee, the referral to the business committee that you submitted to us, Mr. Speaker, came from the prime mover of the motion, the Honorable Muntaka Mohammed Mubarak, the member for Asawase. And Mr. Speaker, he is the person who submitted the application, summoning of the House to you. I referred same to the Business Committee. And the subject matter is request to the Speaker of Parliament under Article 1123 of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana and Order 38(1) of the Standing Orders of the Parliament of Ghana. That is from the Honorable Mohammed Mubarak Muntaka. And he says, we the undersigned members of Parliament, that means that he is part of the people who are causing Parliament to be summoned. He has signed. Mr. Speaker, strangely, the Honorable Muntaka does not have his name on the list. And he has not signed any document. He has not signed any document. Mr. Speaker, he says, we the undersigned. When he was not part of it, Mr. Speaker, and he counts himself as part of the 50% of members. Mr. Speaker, no other person other than the Honorable Mohammed Mubarak Muntaka has submitted any petition to you, any application to you. Mr. Speaker, that means that technically there's nothing before you. It means that technically there's nothing before you. And Muntaka Mohammed Mubarak, indeed and in truth, has no locus. He has no locus in this undertaking. How he came to do that, only he can tell. So, Mr. Speaker, in simple terms, this is a case of misrepresentation. Mr. Speaker, this is a case. It's a typical case of misrepresentation. When he says that he has appended his signature. Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Muntaka,
then again,
I'll give you an opportunity to respond. At the appropriate time, Honorable Majority Leader, you may continue.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the notice says, we, the undersigned members of Parliament from the respective constituencies indicated against our names and comprising more than 50% of all members of Parliament, hereby request for a meeting of Parliament and humbly request the Speaker of Parliament to summon a meeting of Parliament for the consideration of the following proposed urgent agenda. Mr. Speaker, and he supplies a list that they are the people who have signed. The list that he supplies to you, Mr. Speaker, 28 persons have not appended any signature. Mr. Speaker, again, a classical case of misrepresentation. The list includes the Honorable his name has been submitted here, he has not signed. The Honorable Alaji Collins Dauda.
Honorable members, order.
Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Alaji Collins Dauda, he says he has appended his signature, he has not. Honorable Erikopoku, we are told you have appended your signature, you have not. The Honorable Kwame Chumasiambofo, we are told you have appended your signature, you have not. The Honorable Felicia J, we are told by the Honorable Mundaka that you have appended your signature, you have not. The Honorable Mr. Poku Asoya, we are told by Honorable Mundaka that you have appended your signature, you have not. Honorable Emmanuel Ni Okainlai.
Honorable members, order.
Amasamai, we are told you have appended your signature, you have not. The Honorable Oko Vandakwe, we are told by Honorable Mundaka that you have appended your signature, you have not. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Dr. Zinato Ajiman Rollins, we are told you have appended your signature, you have not. Honorable Inusa Abdullahi Hussein, we are told you have appended your signature, you have not. The Honorable
order. Honorable members, order.
The Honorable Adam Mutawakilu, we are told you have appended your signature, you have not. The Honorable Alasan Swalihu Dandawa, the Honorable Mundaka has said you have appended your signature, you have not. Honorable Bashir Hussein, Mr. Speaker, they have not. But Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Aban, you are told you have appended your signature. You have not.
Honorable.
Speaker, so there are many more names. There are many more names here.
Honorable order.
Mr. Speaker, so in reality, there are many more names listed. And we are being told they have appended us to the
You will conclude, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, so certainly this motion and Mr. Speaker, when they caused Parliament to be summoned, they listed a 3-item agenda. The first one is prayers, that we should come and transact business on prayers. Mr. Speaker, people have stayed in this house for some time.
Honorable Majority Leader, please conclude.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, so for this house to be summoned to come and pray and correct those proceedings.
Order. Honorable Majority Leader. Honorable Majority Leader, please sit for the time being. Please sit for the time being. Interruptions don't make debating fluid. If there will be silence, this will proceed to a conclusion. And so long as people want to advise the person, the member, on his or her feet, that person will continue to be on his or her feet. Honorable Majority Leader, you may conclude, but I'll watch the interruptions and decide accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, so the issue that I've raised first have to do with misrepresentation, and second, that it will be an abuse, a gross abuse of the processes of this House, for this House to be summoned to come and pray. As the first item, that coming here, we should come and pray. The second item is that we should come and engage in correction of rules and proceedings. And it's a matter of national importance. You summon Parliament to come and pray and correct rules and proceedings. Mr. Speaker, the young indeed shall grow. Mr. Speaker, and the motion itself, we have heard what allegations have been put out there in the public domain involving extortion of monies, $100,000, and so on and so forth. Today, we are witnessing a flip-flopping, changing of goalposts. Mr. Speaker, the motion before us has nothing to do with extortion. Has nothing to do with extortion. In conclusion, I would want to submit.
Honorable Majority Leader, may I remind, matters regarding procedural or legal or other incompetence of a motion is one thing. If you want to proceed in that direction, then please conclude that quickly and let us know, therefore, what do you want?
Mr. Speaker, you will notice, Mr. Speaker, you would notice that I have not attempted to respond to the issues of the highest office of the land being involved in this, as has been alleged by the minority leader. I have not gone into that. I have not gone into what they are saying, that the Minister of Trade and Industry has involved himself in some impropriety. Because the motion itself does not even talk about that. They are talking about the ministry. And there's a world of difference between the ministry and the minister. Mr. Speaker, So clearly, what we have before us is incompetence. It's a very incompetent motion which cannot be entertained by this House. People should grow in this House, and they should learn the procedures of this House. If they want to come properly, just so that nobody will think that anybody has done anything untoward, this House should stand prepared, once the proper thing is done, to go into the matter. But certainly not on this leg at all. Very wobbly legs, wobbly legs. Speaker, this is a veritably incompetent motion that has been submitted by...
Thank you very much.
So I would urge and pray you to dismiss this. Let them come properly. If they come properly, even today, we are ready to debate.
Honorable Montaka. Order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Montaka. Order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in responding to the majority leader and what he did,
the Honorable Montaka will be allowed to respond. And
Mr. Speaker,
to do what? So as to make clear certain matters raised, particularly with regard to the competence or otherwise of the motion. Order.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank you sincerely for the opportunity to respond to my document. Mr. Speaker, it is Mr. Speaker, it is most shocking and most ingenious to the majority leader to even imagine that what was done was wrong. Very ingenious. Very disingenuous. Very disingenuous. Mr. Speaker, the rules of the House
Honorable members, order.
Mr. Speaker,
Honorable members, order.
my colleague, the majority leader, think he's smart. I challenge him to read Article 1123.
Order.
He should read it properly.
Honorable members, order.
And Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the Constitution talks about, notwithstanding any other provision of this article, 15% of members of Parliament may request a meeting of Parliament, and the Speaker shall, within 7 days after the receipt of the request, summon the House. Mr. Speaker, these are the fundamental questions. Mr. Speaker,
Honorable members, order.
Mr. Speaker, the request is in the memo, and that's where my signature is.
Honorable members,
Mr. Speaker,
Honorable
that is where my
members,
signature
order.
is. And Mr. Speaker, I challenge Majority Leader to get up now to tell this House where in this realm of things is it said that when you sign a memo, that signature is counted out of the list. Mr. Speaker, Speaker, 15% of the House is 41. Honorable Speaker, 15% of the House. Honorable members, honorable members, this business will be conclusively resolved today, even if it's up to midnight. So, honorable members, let us listen to the honorable Minority Chief Whip on his feet so that we make progress. Otherwise, we'll suspend sitting and come back. Order. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when the Constitution and the Standing Orders talks about request, look at my memo and the list attached. That is the request. More than 15% of us, more than 41% of this house are signed. And Mr. Speaker, it is shocking. 41 members are supposed to sign. Mr. Speaker, we have 77 members who have signed. And Mr. Speaker, I'm making reference to the memo that the majority leader surprisingly chose to be mentioning those who have not signed. And the memo that memo that are signed, Mr. Speaker, talks about the undersigned. It didn't say that the attached list. I did sign. My signature is the #1 signature on the front page. Mr. Speaker.
You're watching proceedings live from Parliament, where the minority is seeking to get the Speaker of Parliament to set up a 5-member ad hoc committee to look into the seat for Cash Saga. I have in the studio Michael Boedi of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. So 2 institutions or 2 organizations have been referred to in the ongoing matter. First was NPP. Did I say NPP? First was Joy FM, and then the second was the Ghana Integrity Initiative. And we're both people doing this conversation or having this conversation. So you're welcome to the studio. Let me quickly find out from you whether or not a recall of members of Parliament was necessary at all. It's one of the concerns being raised by the majority at this point. You can begin with your initial thoughts, but let's address the issue of whether or not it's necessary for them to have come back in the first place.
Well, I think that it's very difficult to pronounce necessity or otherwise. It's just an issue of timing. Parliament is on recess, right. So, and then the Constitution, as has been quoted copiously by the minority in the statement, says that it is mandatory for the Speaker to call them back within 7 days on receipt.
Once a request is put
once a request. So it is just a matter of time. It's Christmas, they are on recess, and the request
Christmas is over.
Exactly. So, and the request was made. So the recall was necessitated by the request. So it's not an issue of whether it is necessary or not, but it's an issue of law.
An issue of law. But then the majority leader also makes reference to the fact that this issue has been raised in Parliament in December. The issue was raised in Parliament. There was no statement, there was no motion, there was no question put before the Speaker by the minority. So why now?
Well, it's not. It's also very difficult to. Well, generally they are not satisfied. They are Ghanaians, and they represent certain constituencies. And I want to believe that their constituents have been asking them questions about it. So
right.
I think legitimately, so it's within their rights to ask for inquiry or call for recess. There is nothing wrong with it. I think that if they were satisfied and if the issues had been put to rest properly, they may not have called for these.
Well, we'll see how it goes. But they're asking for a 5-member ad hoc committee, investigative committee actually, to be set up by the Speaker. Do you think, we've seen this before actually, earlier last year, we saw what happened with Mahama Yariga, etc. A 5-member ad hoc committee, GII, you've been very hard on this matter. Is that something that will suffice? Do you have hope in anything like that?
Well, if we are being advised by history, then we are worried that Parliament will, especially with regards to the extreme partisan nature of Parliament, that it will amount to anything. But JII also believes that institutions must be made to work.
Right.
And therefore, once it is within the remit of Parliament, if you look at the mandate of Parliament, they have an oversight role. The 191 has also been quoted as Parliament having the capacity to set up special committees. Yeah. Perhaps we may have requested or wished that we would have had state institutions do these investigations. Say the Auditor General will audit the account, present the findings to Parliament, and then Parliament will debate thereof, you know, so that at least we know that it is very independent of the usual, you know, NPP, NDC politicking. Then the outcome would be, you see, this whole issue actually had become necessary because of the way the whole awards were organized, the denials, the contradictions.
So it's more of the reactions that came afterwards,
and
rather than the way it was organized.
Exactly.
Right.
It's the whole processes, the whole organization was kept out of the public eye. And for someone like me, I've been asking that, look, if you want to award an individual, there are two things that would come. One, you want to award the institution to project or for people to acknowledge that yes, indeed, you know, that individual stands out. And then you also want it to motivate people. But why do it in secrecy? And then the contradictions that ensued thereafter.
I'm going to engage you a bit more on whether or not this was done in secrecy, because I doubt that it was done in secrecy. This was meant for a targeted group of people. So they targeted their audience, or they went for their targets. But let's go over to Parliament and hear the Speaker. Speaker will come back and continue with the discussion.
Can be described as incompetent, and you give reasons. That is not what we are talking about. Try to understand.
Mr. Speaker,
please.
Earlier, the
Honorable Muntafi, you may go on without references, just as pretending. The honourable member has made his point. Please, you have every opportunity to reply to the points without saying someone is pretending. And you know by our rules that is not allowed. Please go on.
Mr. Speaker, earlier my daughter was talking about the young shall grow, referring to his own colleagues that the young shall grow. Mr. Speaker, we have a motion and we have a request before you, and we strongly believe that it has met all the constitutional provisions. It is very competent before you, a competent speaker. It is for him, if he thinks, he can come under Order 93(5) to challenge you for accepting what he thinks is incompetent. Because we believe that you made a competent decision to call in for a competent motion to be taken. And that was why, Mr. Speaker, the 15%, which is just 41 members, where you have over 77 members signing, Mr. Speaker, has met the minimum constitutional requirement. Now, Mr. Speaker, let me say that we can continue to use the mob democracy, where the majority thinks they can do whatever they want to do. Mr. Speaker, I'm challenging the majority leader that he should live up to the decisions that were taken. For him to come knowing that he's going to have the last bite to go around what were the decisions that were taken in conclave. Mr. Speaker, we could have equally done that on the floor, and you know that as the leader of this house, he's setting a very bad precedent. I was never happy. He was there. He knew that I was never happy to use 5 minutes to move this motion. But for the spirit of the understanding that was had in the conclave, I agree. Now we come to the floor. At the tail end, he is turning around and saying things and speaking positions that were very different from what was agreed. I think that is very insincere of him, and it's very unfortunate that the something that is doing this. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that we have a competent motion before the House, and if he thinks he disagrees, he can challenge it. But thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to respond to his comments.
Order, Honourable Majority Leader, Honourable Members, if we will only let the quorum be a hallmark, we'll carry debate fine up here and there. Honourable Majority Leader.
The Speaker, I believe the response from the Chief Whip, tedious and laborious as he has been, has no value to the issue that I raised. Mr. Speaker, he says that I'm insincere, I'm ingenious, and then tells to say that I'm disingenuous. I forgive him, because he is so shell-shocked by the issue that I'm raising that he cannot even be consistent. Mr. Speaker, I did not make any reference to the Constitution. I said, the application that you submitted, you said, we, the undersigned members of Parliament. Where did you say? Where did you say? And that's the issue that I raised. We, the undersigned. And you went on to provide a list of the undersigned. And I said, it's a misrepresentation. Now he's saying that I related to the Constitution. I never. Clearly, he was not even following a trend. Maybe he's not capable of following a trend. Otherwise, if he were, he would not be jumping to this conclusion. Mr. Speaker, and he says that if we want more democracy, for the majority to have our way, then so be it. So whenever the majority should triumph, that is more democracy. That is understanding of
Honourable members.
Wherever
let honourable members be audible. You may go on.
That is understanding of the Honourable Muntaka Mohammed. Wherever a majority decides, that is mob democracy. Thank you very much for exposing yourself, as for exposing what you understand democracy to be. Thank you very much. The word you know. Mr. Speaker, that laborious exercise does not in any way add value to the statement. And I insist that the motion is incompetent and cannot be entertained by this House. Mr. Speaker, not least, how I ended. There's several Parliament on a three-item agenda that we are to come and pray, that we are to come and correct votes and proceedings. And the third one is that when we enter the arena of public business, we should then do this motion. Because clearly, this motion is even a private member's motion, not part of public business. That's why I said, the young shall grow. And the young shall grow terminology, Mr. Speaker, the second Deputy Speaker has the patent rights. I only quoted what he used to say in this House. And to me, it was not offensive at all. And the Honourable Muntaka so much enjoyed it when he was in the majority. Now that the same thing is being thrown at him, he's so jittery. We know you. Mr. Speaker, so the application that I submitted to you is that, and I invite your ruling, that this motion before us is incompetent. And Mr. Speaker, I invite you to rule on it. That's where we are. That is where we are. If they do the right thing, and Mr. Speaker should admit it, we are ever ready. If we have to do it today, we are ever ready. As far as we are concerned, people can't even. I've not spoken to the motion because I'm talking about the competency. That is what the Honorable Kolinzada can't even understand. I'm not talking to it because we are not there yet. When we get there, we will show you the difference between sponsorship and levy, which you can't even appreciate. The difference between sponsorship and levy, which you don't even understand. That's because we are not there. We will get there. For now, can you do on the competence of the motion, and then we shall move on. Thank you very much.
Order.
Mr. Speaker, I have with me here, I've heard the majority leader. He is questioning even the competence of your judgment in some of the and he is further questioning the competence of the motion. Mr. Speaker, this House is not for nothing that he is sitting there as leader of government business. He is accompanied the deputy leader, whip, deputy whip. Here is a minority leader, deputy leader, whip, and deputy whip. Mr. Speaker, the memorandum to you, and I want to show it to the public, is signed by the Honorable Mohammed Mubarak Muntaka, Minority Chief Whip, in a memorandum with address to the Speaker for Parliament. You just sat down. I hope you listened to yourself. You said there is no reference to the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, in the same document, that he didn't make reference. Mr. Speaker, in the Honorable Muntaka's memorandum addressed to you, as the Speaker and the head of this organ, it says subject, and it reads, request to the Speaker of Parliament under Article 1123 of the 1992 Constitution. Mr. Speaker, what does Article 1123 state? It states, and I quote, notwithstanding any other provision of this article, 15% of members of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, you have a House of 275 members. 15% works out to 41.25, so 41. Mr. Speaker, further to the document which he quotes, questioning the whip for using we the underlisted, the we the undersigned, we because, Mr. Speaker, he is conveying this memorandum to you for on behalf of the minority to which he is our whip. And Mr. Speaker, I want the majority leader, take your fingers and count the signatures for the public. 41 signatures is what we require. So, Mr. Speaker, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41. At this point, we have already satisfied the minimum constitutional requirement of 50%. 50%. So take your finger and count. The fact that he has submitted with and the list, Mr. Speaker, he knows that the House was on recess and the whip was taking it down to available members. Once he satisfied the minimum requirement, it is accordingly submitted. So this is 15%. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the motion is competent. Your summoning of the Parliament is competent. And Mr. Speaker, he is not a student of equity like you. Equity looks into the substance and not the form. Therefore, this motion is competent and you have exercised the right judgment in summoning Parliament. We have satisfied the minimum constitutional requirement. He conveyed this on behalf of the undersigned, accordingly submitted by the whip. Thank you.
Yes, we're watching live coverage of the parliamentary debate as to whether or not a committee should be set up to investigate the seat for Cash Saga. I'm in the studio with Michael Boedi of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. Before, well, we're waiting to hear the Speaker speak. So far, it's been a back and forth between the minority leader, the majority leader, as well as the Minority Chief Alhaji Muntaka, who moved the motion. It seems the Speaker is speaking. Let's hear him now and we'll continue.
He will tell you in abundance. It's essentially an administrative act. It is one process. Then, in responding to the incompetence or otherwise of an application before a tribunal or such an esteemed institution is adjudicatory. That is, you determine the matter at that stage. Let it not be said that the mere admission of an application means the person who will decide on it necessarily, therefore, associates himself with it or approves of it. Very often you realize that in courts, lawyers will be advised to go and make amendments and come back, because those amendments are either procedural or they lack clarity. You go and clarify and come back. these are areas that I agree, but we will make them very clear as this parliament develops, if only we will be very patient. If you look at this memorandum, tantamount to an affidavit attached to any application before a court of competent jurisdiction, is addressed to the Speaker from the majority, copied to the majority leader, and is from the Honorable Muntaka, MP for Asawasi, a minority chief whip. It talks about we, the applicants. It talks about a proposed agenda, which of course that itself is obviously unfortunate, because it is not for the applicant to determine the agenda, nor can a motion be brought by a member of parliament by way of government business. I mean, commencement of government business is all a matter of the executive. So if you put the motion over there, it's a problem. But all those matters don't really matter. But when you are saying, I'm forwarding this on behalf of the applicants herein, that goes with a different letter or whatever, and then the application is an attachment. This is, I am the majority leader, or I am the so and so, and this is an application from these persons which is being forwarded to you. Then you just go by what is on the main actual application. But that is not so here. And for that matter, it is a procedural irregularity. But order. And that is why I speak of, in doing the totality of justice, you have to look at all the circumstances and act accordingly. This matter is a matter of grave importance. The procedural irregularities mentioned must be noted because it must not be repeated. And I'm saying this for the record of Hansa. It must not be repeated. But the issue is important. I will therefore ask, direct, that we stand this house down for half an hour so that the relevant procedural issues will be dealt with accordingly. And for that matter, the Honorable Muntaka, now that is being explained, is essentially a conveyor of other people's motion. Then it must not be said that we, for which is a part. Order. Honorable members, order. Order. As for reference to those who did not sign, it is neither here nor there. So long as the relevant number, which constitutes the required membership, is signed, it is so signed. So for that matter, we will adjourn this honorable house for 30 minutes. That will be simply corrected as a procedural error. Oh, sorry, we will suspend the house for 30 minutes. That is just corrected, and then the house will come back, where I'm inclined to deal with the actual composition of a committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.